As they say in Kalapuya, Gamshi Lakwan. As the Aztecs used to say, Mexica Tawe. I'm Mark Harris. Welcome to DiversiTV. If you are part of our growing legion of fans, welcome. If you are hip to us before, welcome back. DiversiTV is a weekly interview show broadcast here from LCC, looking at topics generally under the rubric of diversity. We are in our 8th season, and our mission, and we decide to accept it, is to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. And 8 seasons, our seasons roughly correspond to LCC terms, except for summer term where we broadcast reruns. So we've got about 80 shows in the can. And ironically, we've actually never interviewed anyone from the agency that we're looking at tonight, though I do have a personal long history with them. Over the season 8, we have looked at, last week we looked at a legal perspective from Greg Hazarabidian, who is the executive director of Lane County Public Defender's Services, and today we are interviewing Marcela Mendoza, who is the executive director of Centro Latino Americana. Generally speaking, one of the issues that I had dealt with, and just to tell you a story in terms of one of the benefits, at the Longhouse benefit, I had a backstage conversation with someone that was upset that people were actually getting $1 an hour more to speak Spanish. Why don't they learn English? And I said, excuse me, you're at a native benefit, and the default setting here before 1492 was 3,000 languages, and that you learn, it was only polite to learn someone else's language. So if you go back to the graphic again, I have this poster, who's the illegal alien pilgrim of the angry Aztec, pointing out and setting it straight. So from Mexica, Chicano to Chicano affairs to Central Latino Americano, Mexica Tawe means all my relations in Aztec, and that's the Aztecs who built what are referred to the great red cities of the south, for example, Tenochtitlan among others, where there were trade routes going up into what is now called Canada, Alaska for 10,000 years. There were no borders. There was open trade, no borders. So it was Turtle Island, which is now what we refer to as North, Central, and South America. So one land, many nations, no borders. So Mexica Tawe is from which we get the name of the country, Mexico. So Mexico, whose flag, designed by its second president, Vicente Guerrero, like myself, a black Indian, depicts the unity of a people of mixed heritage, Turtle Island, Africa, and Europe. So the flag is 3 colors, red for our common blood from our different heritage, white for the church that we respect, and green for the land. So President Guerrero was an ex-slave who, upon his election to president, outlawed slavery throughout all Mexico, which included all the states which have Spanish names: Texas, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, California, and New Mexico, among others. It was because of the Mexican-American War that many former Mexicans suddenly became Americans, and Texas, which had freed slaves, suddenly became a slave state and eventually part of the Confederacy. Oregon, of course, which is essentially a southern state in the Northwest, banned slavery by banning the free American citizens who were of African descent. Naturally, this led to attitudes that were less than welcoming for Lane Community College and University of Oregon students in the 20th century, who reacted thusly, in 1972 by creating a social service agency to meet the cultural needs of Mexican-American students as well as other Spanish-speaking cultural groups and community members. For example, Mexican-American U.S. veterans of the Vietnam War and other wars and their families and other immigrant populations and people who were also citizens and indigenous populations. So originally called Chicano Affairs, while still serving non-Chicanos, it was later changed to its present name, Centro Latino Americano. That mission statement from their website, Centro Latino Americano is a bilingual, multicultural agency dedicated to the empowerment of the Latino community in Lane County. The agency goals is helping family to become self-sufficient and meet basic needs, getting disadvantaged families affordable housing, creating healthier lives and basic health care for all, lowering child abuse and ensuring thriving children, creating stable, violence-free families, and respecting diversity and the understanding of others. Also encouraging economic development in low socioeconomic status families. Their logo, which includes part of what the original Chicano Affairs had, the eagle, has several services, programs like Los Niños, the children's program, Familias Unidas, multicultural parenting classes, Conexiones, connections program, Cambios, which is an alcohol and drug treatment program, Alternativas, crisis and referral, Viviendo Crecimiento, transitional housing program, ESL, and for those of you who may have issues with immigration, people pay taxes, tax preparation, because we do want people to pay taxes. And when they do pay taxes, then they should rightfully expect services from their government that they pay taxes to. Our guest tonight, Marcela Mendoza, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I ask this question of everyone. Where are you from? Because the question always comes up because a lot of people weren't necessarily born in Oregon or many of us are transplanted. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Argentina.
Ah.
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. When you encounter an Argentinian outside the country, there is more than a third chances that is from Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is a big city. It's an underpopulated country.
Ah.
Most of the population live there.
And you taught college there?
Yeah, I taught at the University of Buenos Aires, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And anthropology?
Anthropology, yeah.
Okay.
Always anthropology.
Okay.
Yeah. Sociocultural anthropology, not archaeology.
Okay.
But it's sociocultural, yeah. Human evolution, indigenous peoples, hunters and gatherers societies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you come to Eugene?
Was a job move. I am here with my family.
Okay. All right.
So my husband is a professor at Oregon Health Sciences University.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm also an adjunct in the Department of Anthropology here.
Mm.
And I'm a researcher at the Center for the Study of Women in Society.
Okay. How does immigration play into that?
I started doing immigration a long time ago when we decided to move back to the United States because we had our doctoral training here.
Mm-hmm.
It's those things that have been in the right place at the right time. At the University of Memphis, where I was at that point, there was a new project to study immigration in 2000 when this just was starting. And they needed a project coordinator, bilingual, and I wanted to do it. So I'm studying immigration and conducting research and writing since then. Yeah.
So what of your work at the University of Oregon with immigration, then, in terms of being an adjunct or whatever else?
Yeah, I did some research. Research in sociocultural anthropology, it's interviewing.
Okay.
It's looking around what's happening. It's getting into people's lives, trying to understand. So that, yeah, I did some interviews. I met countless observations I read about this. So much that with a colleague in Corvallis at OSU, we just delivered a manuscript about Mexicanos in Oregon, their stories, their lives. It's a book that it's going to be published in the spring. Yeah. So that's the product of our research.
So what do you hope that book will do?
Bring the history of Mexicanos in Oregon a little more into light. Yeah, it's not written, has not been written before, as a book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do remember there was this book called Los Otros? Or
Nosotros.
Yeah.
Yes.
But before that, there was really nothing. And, you know, even that book even is, you know...
That's a collection of individual cases.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I try and point it out, you know, especially to the person that was talking about, oh, well, they should learn to speak English, and why should, you know, somebody get paid $1 more because they speak Spanish? And, well, okay, look, Mexico ended 10 miles south of Ashland. Okay, so
yeah.
So, you know, let's look at history here. And I mean, you are from a place called Chicago, which means wind on the water, and you know, where, you know, there was at least, you know, English, French, and Algonquin spoken. So, you know, get over it. I mean, it's a skill. You know, the more languages you speak, the more intelligent you are. So think about, you know, what it would take for someone to leave their ancestral homeland and come to a place where they would not be so welcome. Though, again, you know, so a lot of people don't necessarily understand that is not just migrant farm workers, it's also professionals that leave and come here and, you know, are not necessarily welcomed with open arms in academe either. So some of those stories that you're talking about.
It's also maybe a generational thing, because the youth, the young Americans, they are also going overseas. They are also doing experiences in Europe, in Korea, in Japan, in Australia. I have students at the age of 20, 22 that they want to do an experience in Spain or in Latin America. I always tell them, you may immigrate. If not you, your children may immigrate.
Yeah.
From America to some other place.
Right.
That's the way we live.
Right.
Now.
Especially today. Yeah.
Yes.
Especially.
Yeah.
You know. Globalization notwithstanding, it's becoming a smaller and smaller planet. So.
And there are chances that your children will marry someone who is from a different culture.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yes, it's been here too. Sure.
Yeah.
How did you come to the Centro? I mean, you were on the board.
I was on the board,
Okay.
and I had the opportunity to take the direction initially part-time. At this point I'm part-time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But even so, given, you know, the history of the community and the history of the agency, you know, what do you think are some of the directions, or the, you know, I guess the question I'm thinking of is, what are some of the strengths of the community?
The community has evolved as everything evolves.
Yeah.
So now we have families that are settled. Their children are American born. Their children are in schools. When you look at the census numbers, that are the only demographic numbers that we can look at, even with all the undercount.
Yes.
When you look at the numbers of Latinos in Lane County, about 20,000 recorded. You see that about the majority of them are doing well. About 70% of all Latino families are doing well in Lane County. But there is a third, about 30% of those families that speak Spanish at home, live at or below poverty level,
Okay.
and have less than high school education. Well, that sector of the population is the population that Centro Latino Americano serves.
Okay.
But the rest of the Latinos are doing very well. They are in the middle class. They have graduated from school, from high school, and well, they don't require our services. But there is a sector of the Latino population in Lane County that still need what we can do for them. And they are mostly adults. Most of the children that come with their parents are American-born and are doing well.
Okay.
They have health insurance. They have additional services that they can access because they are citizens. So I would go forward and say that it's not only 1/3 of the population that we serve, but it's the adults in that population that we serve. And this is going to evolve, and this is going to continue changing. In the future, we are going to be giving different type of services for people that need some more parenting classes, some more help in integration, or even recreational things, but not crisis intervention.
Okay, right.
Not food boxes. No bus passes. Or just a smaller portion of them will need that.
Okay.
Because Latinos are doing well.
So if, say, 1/3 of them then have less than a high school education, but their kids are okay because they're citizens and ostensibly being educated, within the school system, there's going to be some tension between those almost two worlds, even living within one home. Can you talk about that as an anthropologist? I mean, you must have, there's some stories, because...
Yes, and this is so, we are working on that. I'm just writing a proposal for parenting classes to address this issue. This is something that it happened to everyone, every immigrant, everywhere.
Yeah.
We are trying to raise bilingual and bicultural children in any culture, in any language. We can say this in Italy.
Yeah, right.
New immigrants that are settled, that are going to be here, that eventually are going to be naturalized citizens of the country where they settle. I'm a mother. We are trying to raise our children that are bilingual and bicultural to the culture of the place. But we don't know how to do it because we don't have that culture. And the second generation not always adheres to the culture of the parents. It's the third generation that comes back. So usually that's the case.
Yeah.
The third generation starts remembering and wanting to learn the language and remember the grandparents. But the second generation usually wants to detach. And our job as foreign-born parents is to find a way to keep the connection with them.
Yes. Why is that important?
Because you have to preserve your identity. It might sound counterintuitive, but to integrate, you need to preserve your identity. And your identity is by essence bilingual and bicultural. You cannot integrate if you don't keep being who you are.
Yes, right.
So you integrate in your own terms. You feel that you are valued because you value the society to which you integrate. That's why we are here, because we think that it's a great country and we can contribute, and we do. That's something that, every immigrant in any place of the world, it's always a plus, because immigrants bring the best of the country that they left. They are usually young. It's not my case, but I was young when I came. They're usually young.
Usually young, right?
They're usually healthy, because you know that it's going to be very difficult, to say the least.
Right.
So if you don't feel that you are really healthy and up to it, you don't come.
Right.
They are young, they are healthy, they are entrepreneurial, they are courage. They have courage. So you get very good people.
Yes.
The very good people that populated this country at the beginning from Europe. People have to always remember that you get a selected population with the immigrants, any immigrant, everywhere. That's why.
Talk about that, because one of the pieces that when you hear, I'm glad to hear you say that specifically, an anthropologist in particular, because the people that immigrant are, they tend to be young, they tend to be stronger, healthier, probably the best of the culture that they left, bringing to the new culture something good, something strong, something positive.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, is not something you necessarily hear in terms of, the anti-immigrant rhetoric. It's like, well, wait a minute,
At any level of education, at any social sector, you get the best.
Yes.
You get the best.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why immigrants can build something immediately. And they stay in touch with one another. And they nurture their social networks. If you tap into the immigrant population, with some guidance, you can do extraordinary things. Because we are thirsty for instructions to get a clue of how to integrate, how to become, in this case, how to become Americans. In other cases, how to become Canadians or Spaniards or Germans.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say this because it's part of my field in studying in terms of substance abuse. One of my colleagues, Hugh Vasquez, La Cultura Cura. Culture is the healing stuff.
Yes.
So one of the things that seems to be correlated positively with lowered substance abuse is this issue of, it's called variously either assimilation stress or acculturation stress, where you bring certain positive values from the old country, and then one of the things that we find with America is being born in America is positively correlated with substance abuse.
It's a risk factor.
Right, it's a risk factor. Right, and that immigrants have lower levels of substance abuse, but the longer they stay here, the more likely they are to use drugs and become involved with negative behaviors associated with addiction. And so one of the things that we find is preserving that biculturality is a protective factor.
Yeah. And those who get into drugs and addictions are those who experienced discrimination the most.
Yes, right. We've definitely found that here in Lane County and in Oregon, too.
Because I have to say it, I am incorporated into American society as a university professor, as a professional. So the type of discrimination that I may encounter is very different, and at a very different degree.
Yes.
That a person that does unskilled work. Just for the fact that someone is employed in a low wage position. Yes. Just for that reason, independently of the way the person looks like.
Right.
So that's yeah. It's the amount, the degree of discrimination, and let's use the term racialization that someone experiences. Yeah, and the coping response is the other one.
Yeah. So within, because of your agency, and its history, I mean, that's part of the thing that you talk about. How do you deal with in terms of teaching skills about dealing with racism?
Yeah. All the staff at Centro, it's foreign born.
Okay.
We are all first-generation immigrants, and that's what makes Centro so unique.
Yes.
Today.
Right.
It may have not
Right.
been in, that
not
in the
past, but today.
Today.
Yes. Right.
And that's also a sign of the times.
Mm-hmm.
A sign of how the society evolved. Because now we can have a staff that it's all immigrant, but can do things.
Yes. Right.
We're independent.
Right.
Because we are immigrants ourselves, we immediately empathize with the client. Immediately. And we don't do teaching or workshops on racism ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but we understand one another. The things we share, the conversations that we have, it's embedded. It's embedded. That just implicitly we give strategies and we share the way we cope with. It's in the culture.
Yes.
It's in the
Right.
institutional culture
Right.
of Central Latin Americana.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we have so many clients. That's why people continue to come, those who needed it, because they find a very friendly faces, very friendly accents. One of our staff person is from Brazil, and that is great. And because she's there, Brazil is the first, one of the best powers, more important powers in South America. And they just got the Olympics.
Right. Sorry, Obama.
Sorry,
That's the way it goes.
yeah. But because one of our caseworkers is from Brazil, she brings diversity to our Latin American community. Mm-hmm. I'm from Argentina. Our receptionist is from Colombia. Our office manager is from Honduras. One caseworker is from Cuban heritage. Others are from Mexico. So, because we have a Brazilian in staff, we also are teaching Portuguese.
Portuguese. Okay.
Portuguese
Okay.
to non-Portuguese speakers. Yeah, we are teaching Spanish to English speakers, and of course English as second language, because that's what we can do. We think that is a civic obligation, a civic duty to teach English to immigrants. We don't do it ourselves. We do it with volunteers.
Yes.
Okay. But that's something that we can provide for free. It's English classes. We have English classes every evening. We have ESL in the morning. We want to keep that happening. And we have citizenship workshops. And that you mentioned, we help assisting with tax preparation, because those are elements of integration that we can support, that we know that are important, have been important for us, are going to be important for immigrants, so much more if immigration reform passes. And we are going to need all these services.
In a perfect world, what would immigration reform look like?
It's going to give a path to citizenship to foreign-born immigrants that cannot access that today because they have an undocumented immigration status. Yes. Of course, not anyone will qualify. The proposal asks for someone who had been working in the States for a number of years, who have paid taxes, who had no encounter with the law. But there are millions of people in that situation.
Yes.
That have been working here for a number of years, that pay their taxes, that have never had any trouble with the law. Except,
the majority, indeed.
And the majority. Yes. Except that their entrance, when they came here, was not recorded.
Right. Right. And, they often... Here's the way I look at it, only because, there are a variety of reasons. I was influenced by a stage play that came here that basically characterized the move north similar to black slaves. People were escaping slavery, and they were helped.
Understand?
By that, and that's what it was looking like, right? And because also parallel, because I teach that history. Well, African slaves were welcome in Mexico. I mean, not only did we have did Mexico have a black president before America did? Yeah. Mexico freed the slaves before America did, and slaves were, escaped to Mexico, and as well as in addition to Canada. So I mean, basically, escaping economic and political injustice and going north to freedom is a time-honored thing, and so. The issue that I find with this whole immigration debate, even though it was a joke with Jay Leno, is that unlooked in this whole immigration debate is the fact that 500,000 white people, I mean, let's not put too bald a face on it. I mean, Europeans and Canadians, are here illegally, and nobody's hunting them down, and they aren't doing farm work. And so I mean, I remember being in D.C. and somebody actually joking about the fact they had this illegal immigrant from Canada or Europe
or
making
Ireland.
$80,000, job, right? Ha ha, in our law firm, and okay, well that ain't so funny because I mean, ICE isn't looking for them.
No.
So a lot of these folks who are coming here, the best of the best.
Yes.
Working hard. Why shouldn't we welcome them if they're here to help us build a more positive country?
And they have children, and they raise their families with so much care. Yeah. With so much love.
Well, not only that. I mean, I guess to talk about the whole substance abuse piece, right? They have positive values for education. I mean, we're educators, right? They respect authority. They're respectful. They're hardworking. Why wouldn't we want them?
I don't know why. Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the challenges that you regularly deal with? Because here you have an agency, staffed by immigrants that's working with a very powerful a very powerful population in terms of, the energy that they bring, the positivity that they bring, and you're surrounded by people that don't necessarily have that kind of positive value, and also other agencies that, I mean, you could be a fertile training ground. At least that has been also the experience of Centro in the past.
Yes. No, I know that in Lane County there are many people that now are in powerful positions or contributing to the society that were Centro volunteers or Centro employees before. Yes, no, the center has been a training ground, as you said, for many Latinos. What we still, 30 years later, we still would want to coordinate services for Spanish speakers through Centro, because we have the ability. At Centro, we are truly bilingual and bicultural, and we are educated, and we understand what's happening. So we are still trying to coordinate services for Spanish-speaking immigrants through Centro. Yeah, we may be able to do it. Yeah. We all provide advocacy. I'll tell you something, a little something.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a day labor program at the center.
Really? Okay.
We host workers, because the first need today for the Latino community and for everyone else, it's lack of jobs. If you talk about the needs of our people, it's jobs, for sure. It's healthcare access.
Yes.
We are trying to get a nurse there at Centro again. It's English as second language. It's legal aid. And it's affordable housing. Now, jobs, healthcare, and housing, it's the same for everyone. for the population that serves United Way and every other agency that targets the poor. But our people also need English as second language to go to work,
right.
to go to a school meeting, and they need legal aid. Not only immigration issues, but landlord-tenant issues.
Well, people will tend to take advantage of you if you don't. One, if you can't speak the language, and then you don't know the rules.
And you don't know the rules.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And also employer-employee issues. Yeah. So those are the needs of our population. But I'll tell you a little story. We do have this. We open the doors of Centro every morning for day labor, people that are looking for jobs, and employers will call Centro, and the only thing that we do is we direct the employer to the employee, the willing employee, for the day. And they come back the next day. Maybe other people will come back the next day. One of these day workers, day laborers, his wife was hired for by a senior Cuban lady to do house cleaning. While she was doing house cleaning at the house of this older Cuban lady who is disabled, she noticed that other staff from another agency that were there to do chores for her were not doing it. They just signed out and went out, and they didn't touch anything in the kitchen. They didn't do their chores. So this Latino immigrant woman came back to Centro and told us, listen, this is happening to this old lady. She speaks Spanish. She doesn't realize what's happening to her. And one of our caseworkers called the agency that was sending these people to that home and complained. That's the type of advocacy that we can do.
Yeah.
Because we care by other immigrants.
Whether they're your clients or not, of course.
There is an immediate connection.
Yeah, right.
This is the social network and that keeps us together. This is what we call community. Because we talk about community so many times in a day.
Yes, right.
But this is what we call community. The immediate connection that we have to one another, this idea that we want to help one another, because we know what they have been through, we know what we have been through. So that creates immediate support. Okay. That's what we are doing at Centro, for everyone.
Okay. This, because I have a past relationship, and I remember, because our current police chief, I worked with him among others, and previous Centro directors on this particular project. And one of the things we were trying to deal with was people who were, shall we say, involved with the underground economy, right? And because, for whatever reasons, they felt either they didn't have access to legal day labor or whatever, and so the guys would be involved with the underground economy, but the women would not be, right? So the police would, bust, the dealers or the traffickers or whatever, and then here you have families, that were left in the lurch, and Centro stepped in to fill the void. But the issue was also, okay, how do we find, legal employment for people who are, in either the justice system or whatever, may or may not have the legal advocacy. How do we find legal work for them? Are there still efforts going on? Because I got out of touch with that, kind of.
We are making efforts to bring a legal aid clinic to Centro. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'm working on that. Right now, we have a Know Your Rights workshop with a lawyer that is helping us, with a lawyer and an interpreter. Okay. But we'll try to do that. If we ever talk again, well, I'll tell you we did it.
Yeah. Good. What kind of collaborations would you like to see?
I know that we at Centro can be meaningful to many other agencies that are offering social services and human services. Because of the dimensions of the immigrant population in Lane County, the estimate for 2009 was 8% of the county.
8%?
8% of the county being Latino.
Wow, okay.
And that estimates it's our numbers in county reports. These are not our numbers. Those are
county reports.
County reports.
Right.
Yeah. So when we talk about that 8% of the population that it's Latino, we mostly talk about immigrants. We mostly talk about foreign-born. The foreign-born that are settled here, that have their children in school, but a portion of them really need help. If immigration reform passes and next year we will have hundreds of people in the condition to apply for citizenship, to apply for legal status. Once you obtain your legal status, you'll be able to access many more services because that's your right.
Yeah.
We want to help all these law-abiding, hard-working immigrants to access those services because we want them to be healthy. We want them to be fully integrated. So a Centro can be a partner to many other agencies, social services and human services agencies locally to help integrate all these good people. Yeah. I am envisioning, some service coordination, service integration, where we play a role because we are truly bilingual and truly bicultural. We know what we are talking about. I envision some collaboration where we play a role. Yeah.
So in terms of building a new culture, because that's what you're doing, what kind of efforts do you see in that area?
A multicultural society.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
I mean, again, because bilingual, bicultural, but then you're adding Portuguese because you have a Brazilian.
Yeah.
And then what about the issue of globalization? I mean, who would have thought that China would buy Hummer? Okay.
Yeah.
So then,
and they buy chicken wings for us. Because they like them.
Right. I mean, so making it normal to be multilingual and normalizing that. I mean, because it's not just the children, right? But being able, to try and export those cultural protective factors. I think there's something that you have to teach us all in terms of looking at, Eugene talks a good game in terms of honoring diversity, but I think, I think it's a game sometimes unless you really walk the talk there.
Yeah. So, multiculturalism, it's proven that it's good, at least it's good for America. America is this very unique place where many people like you and me are here because we want to be Americans.
Yeah.
We think that we can contribute and we can give things and receive things, that we improve ourselves by being here. So America is this wonderful country, along with other countries in the world that are countries of immigration. But Americans is a success story. So we want multiculturalism. We want to keep our roots and keep it being bilingual, being bi something, continuing what we bring and being Americans, becoming Americans.
Well, that's scary for a lot of folks. I mean, what do you say to them?
Probably their great-grandparents did the same.
I'd say. I mean, they did. I mean, they forget that.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, really. I mean, again, the things that you're doing or you're saying about these folks were once said about your folks. So how quickly you forget. So what would what would an American society look like that was based on, you know, actually developing at least bicultural skill?
Yes, no, at least bicultural skill, but yeah, multicultural skills. One of the great things of America is that when you are born here, you become American with any cultural heritage. If you are here, you are American with any cultural heritage, and then we get together along. Yeah. Yes, we are certainly contributing to a new stage in America that is a multicultural stage. Yeah, Latinos are so many, and so many in California. There are so many in Florida. Yes, but it shouldn't be perceived as a threat. We all are together here.
Yeah.
And the Latinos that are here want to be American.
Right.
Yeah, it shouldn't be perceived as a threat.
It shouldn't be perceived as a threat, but you know, a lot of people do see that. So in terms of, I guess, strategic directions that you see this, what kind of strategic directions do you see the Centro taking?
Centro is going to evolve. It's already evolving as the society, as our population. That's why we are offering all those services that help integrate people. And we are doing less crisis intervention.
Okay.
And we are going to continue with evolving. Soon we are going to be serving the second generation and the third generation. We already have a summer camp for Latino children. We have this play.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you do there?
We partner with the University of Oregon,
Okay.
Daycare Center.
Okay.
And this is great. Yeah, this is for the children. And we have play groups every week for the
I
little.
saw that on the website.
For the
play
little
group.
ones.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. We are going to have groups for adolescents. We have classes for Latino students who want to access college. So we will be evolving and moving with the population. We will become more rooted in the county. With time, we won't be perceived as foreign.
Yes. Yeah, and where foreign is a bad thing. I'm trying to think of the term. I heard the term was either mutualismo or an itanda. It's sort of like you create a bank, your own bank. Because that was an idea that I had thrown out, you know, when we were doing Comunidades, which was that collaboration between Centro and the police, and, you know, in terms of looking at alcohol and drug things, and people, you know, all right, well, they have economic needs, and they also need to be financially literate.
Oh, yes.
All right, so that doesn't mean creating a Spanish wing of, you know, I think at the time it was the OUR credit union. It wasn't just creating that just because they were in the neighborhood, but creating your own thing because people were doing that in the community anyway.
Yeah.
Privately, you know, pooling their money, you know, sending it back to the old country, but, you know, keeping some of those, I guess, as dollars here, right? But have you thought about doing that? Because, you know, there's a saying here, right? Money talks.
Oh, yes.
Other, you know, fertilizer walks.
Yeah.
Right? And part of becoming, you know, rooted here is also that whole issue of investing and becoming a source of money, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you're doing day labor, but, you know, then you become an employer and a bank, et cetera, your own corporation.
That's something certainly doable. Other immigrant populations have done that.
Yes, right. They have.
Other nationalities, that's something that it's worth to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, acquiring real estate and the whole thing, where you build for the future.
Yeah, and you know that there is a group associated with the Chamber of Commerce that is a Latino network group.
Okay.
Of business owners.
Oh, right, the Hispanic Business Council. Is that it?
Yes, that's
right,
it.
Right.
And that's something new. It wasn't there before.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that I think it's a step in that direction.
If you're going to create your own college.
Oh.
Well.
Yeah. Wow, what a dream.
Okay. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Because, the default setting for the University of Oregon is English. And tends to be English only, except where we teach foreign language, right? It's not bilingual.
No.
Okay? The default setting at this institution is, English only, except where we have foreign language, and it's not bicultural.
No.
So, I mean, honor diversity is not multicultural necessarily. Not yet. Not in practice. It's still, the default setting is English only, right? I mean.
Yes. No. If a group of people would create a curriculum, that would be a curriculum from a different point of view.
Yes. So, as an anthropologist, what do you think that some essential elements of that would be?
You pointed to one basic, this idea of collectivism, of egalitarianism and cooperation. Yeah, that's it. That would be one of the pillars. Yeah.
I think so. And by the way, that's not socialism necessarily.
No. It's indigenous.
Yes.
That's the way indigenous people think.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about becoming American, and I'm thinking, well, yes, I was born in San Francisco and raised in Los Angeles, and I've lived in Oregon for 25 years. So, when I went to, Paris and London, yes, I'm an American, but no, I'm thinking something deeper than what America represents, because, the red, white, and blue is not the same sense as the, red, green, and white. The red, of the Mexican flag is like, okay, 3 different groups coming together, and we all have red blood, and we're coming together.
Yes.
Right? That does not mean the same thing in the American flag.
No.
At all.
No.
Right? And so, to become a multicultural society where we do accept people coming here and helping us build a common thing. Well, I mean, we're still moving towards that even after 230 years.
Yes, yeah.
So for me, what America needs to be is, it wouldn't be worthy of comment that we have, a Latino woman president.
Why not? At least we have a judge now.
Yes. Right. And she's bringing some humor to the bench, and some real world experience to the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, being an American is to agree on the principles of the Constitution, to agree on some rules. That's the thing that united us.
Yes.
That we agree on those rules, that we abide by the Constitution. But then we can be who we are.
Yes, I wouldn't actually mind a rewriting of the Constitution along the South African lines, so that we have, 16 official languages, and state support of others, as well as eliminating all the forms of discrimination.
What a dream.
It's indigenous.
It is?
I mean, we're returning to what used to be here, before 1492. But, some people are scared of that, and they shouldn't be.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's good for those people's children and grandchildren. It's a vision of a world where we understand one another.
Yes, and know about each other's history and evolve together. So, do you have any final thoughts?
I think that Centro Latinoamericano, after more than 30 years here in Eugene, it's a presence, and it's going to continue to be a presence. And we all want the mission of Centro to remain vital. Yes, yeah. And we'll collaborate even more with other people, and we'll be useful to them too. Yeah. We are doing this because we're bringing our hearts to the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not a little confianza, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And thank you very much for the opportunity to have this wonderful conversation.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
If you like what you've seen, write us, email us at liveclass@lanecc.edu. Put DiversiTV in the subject line. Tell a friend about this show. And email us with either feedback or suggestions for future guests. Till then, I'm Mark Harris with my guests, Marcela. Go well, stay well.